So the very first thing I want to do is I'm going to draw out a basic UI. So with the basic UI, not do anything too crazy. You know, we're going to have a player hand. You know, that's going to have my cards, however many that is. And then we're going to have the dealer hand. Right, which is hidden, at least to start. Right? Because this is the starting screen for blackjack, right? What's my hand, and what's the dealer hand? I'm going to have two buttons, right, somewhere in here. Hit and stay. Is there anything else that we need?
Reset button.
A reset button.
Counter.
Counter? For what? Oh,
I don't know how many times you win.
So we have counter. Our record, which will be wins and losses. That's the counter. In here we'll have a reset button.
Do you also incorporate, color schemes and everything else in the background, or
Not yet.
Okay.
So it's always content, structure, layout, functionality, styling. Because styling should be an afterthought, only because styling's probably going to change a lot. So it's like, I want to make sure that this is good, and then go from there. I could, and when I get to that point, I should. But time boxed by 2 hours, 16 minutes. It's not a priority for me right now.
Got it.
So besides the player hand and dealer hand, I had put in my content deck and each card. Because deck is the array and then each card is the object, right? Is this part of the main things that you need to do?
So as the user, will I ever see the entire deck?
No.
So I wouldn't put it in my content. Am I going to have that? Yes. Whenever we get to building out our JavaScript, that's going to become super important.
I have the results and the winner count. You have all that. I'm sorry.
We have the winner count. The actual card totals.
Your score, dealer score, hits me, and winner
Yes.
count. Yeah.
Yes, we can add a score right here, just so we know what it is. If we really wanted to, so this would be the total.
Right.
Whatever our current card total is.
Yeah, if you add a value to the cards.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we want to do for our HTML? I know there's a lot of JavaScript stuff we have to do and a lot of CSS stuff we'd like to do, but that sounds good, right? It's good. It's a good start. So let's do this. Where's my mouse? And as always, anytime if you don't know what I did or if I did something weird or if you're lost, stop me. So I look at that and I'm going to break down my big sections. My big sections, remember as your HTML, it's an outside-in approach. This is a section. Yep, whoops, I missed that line. That's a section. That's a section. We can even break this down a little bit further. That's a section, that's a section, and that's a section. That's a section, that's a section. Hopefully you're feeling comfortable with HTML and finding the boxes now. So, header, welcome to blackjack. Section, player details. Section, dealer details. And we also have a section that's our scoreboard. player record, player record. And there we have a p tag of your record win-loss count is, we'll do 14 and 10. So notice how I'm hard coding in data first, and then I'm going to make it dynamic later. And this also has our reset button. Reset game. We have a header. Play your hand. We have a p tag, probably a section. Player score. And our card is a list, right? So unordered list, play your hand. Now inside of here, we're going to have a list item, card, image, source. For now, I'm going to pick out my 2 favorite cards just to kind of have placeholders there. I know some of you had questions about how to do the images. So I'm going to link it, images, and my favorite cards are going to be, we'll do the 3 of hearts. .svg, as well as the Queen of Hearts. Queen of Hearts. I meant spades. Alt tag because we're good programmers. It is the spades, yep. I was thinking ahead while typing something else. Bad practice. Button, hit, button, stay. Class is the hit button. Class equals stay button. Stand, yep. So we have, that's fine with me. Yeah? So we actually haven't run it yet. So let's start this, fire this thing up. Where's my terminal? I lost my terminal. There you are. Here on start. Oh, already. So we have our 3 of hearts, queen of, and the queen of spades. Got the player hand.
So when you import your images, does it give you an image or does it give you a code? Like in your file?
Can you say that in a different way? So like
If you go into your folder where you have the images,
yeah.
it gives you just the code.
If I open this. Yeah, so an SVG is a certain type of image format that is very web friendly, and it will if you try to open up the image inside of VS Code, it will give you a whole bunch of code.
Okay.
That is then interpreted by the browser to be an image.
So all you had to do was write in 1 or 2 of the list, and then the next stage is in JavaScript, you just write the element list.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah. Like this isn't too crazy yet, right? Like, or no?
No, you're not going to write all 66 of them.
No, we're going to be using for loops to build our deck and everything like that. So.
But you needed to write the source for at least one or two.
Yeah. So this is just getting like, okay, what? Think of it as building your own
Your bones.
runway. Yeah, you're building the skeleton.
Right. Now, could you have done that with an empty image container element?
I could, instead of like putting in like this stuff right here.
The actual, yes.
Yeah, I could, and probably whenever we get to like being actually like dealing out the hand and stuff, it probably will be empty. But for right now, it's just a placeholder.
Yeah.
And you'll notice the only thing that I really did extra today was I added classes to a lot of things, and that's just another layer of description. And let's be real, everything's gonna have a class either in CSS or JavaScript anyways. So it's kind of a good like what is what kind of mentality, Jordan.
Well, when you're adding that the list item,
Mhm.
when you were moving the entire line of that image there, it looked like you had only selected the image portion, and then you were able to move the entire line. Usually, I have to go to the line, command, directional arrow, shift, command, directional arrow, select the entire line, move over.
So a trick with like a whole bunch of modern code editors is that if there's nothing selected on a line and you hit like copy or move or stuff like that, it's going to select the entire line by default. So like, see how nothing's selected here? If I go to move that, it's going to move the entire line.
And that's the alt.
Yeah, that's the alt up and down. Same thing with copy and paste. Like if nothing's selected, if I hit copy, and then I go to paste, it's going to paste that entire line.
Okay.
So instead of having to like select them all and like actually manually select stuff, if you want to move entire lines or deal with entire lines, just put your cursor there.
Oh. You don't have to do that for the dealer because you're not showing the dealer's hand. Or you're going to show one hand, right?
I'm going to go do the dealer stuff next,
Oh,
just to kind of do it.
okay.
But yeah, so dealer stuff, dealer details. So it looks a lot like the player hand, right? I'm actually going to copy a lot of this because I already have it made. Go in here. Do we have an empty card in here? Or a card back?
Had to go find one.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, need to change that.
Could use the Joker.
Oh yeah. Where's the Joker? Is it just called Joker? Black Joker. There we go.
Why were there cards that, like extra cards?
So like, why are there like Ace of Spades and Ace of Spades 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one didn't have like a face. Like the twos.
Personal preference, stylistic choices.
Oh.
So like, you could use either that one or this one. It's up to you. So now we have the player hand of 3, the 7, and the Joker. Joker's hidden. Cool. Let's add a total here. We don't know the total of that. And this is hopefully 13. Formatting aside, it's not that bad. It's all the contents. Here's enough structure for us to start actually building out the game. So, going back to what a few of you said before, the first thing we need is a deck. We know how to build a deck, right? I'm going to make a commit, though. Added HTML, structure, added basic, HTML structure. So now, I'm going to delete what's there. I need to build a deck of cards, and I need to shuffle the deck of cards. Do you want to do this together again, or do you want to just use code that we already have?
Do it together.
Okay. Okay. So let's rebuild. So let's break down the deck. Our deck is an array that we're going to be needing in a lot of places. So const deck equals an empty array. So let's think about what a card is. So what all does a card have? Well, a card has a value, right? An actual point value. A card has a suit. It has a rank. And it has an image, right? An image URL, it actually has a card associated to it. So I could make an object for each card that has all 4 of those values. Or minimally, I need suit and rank. Did anyone use objects for their cards? I assume everyone did. What did your objects look like? Like what properties did your objects have?
I just had 2,
You just had 2?
Like value and the rank.
So you just had like these 2?
Yeah, and then value, so I guess 3, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, 3.
Had the images that.
You also
As
had
well,
the image
yeah.
here as well. Yep.
for those.
I also had, I didn't have image because I just wanted to focus on functionality, but I had a name that was just value of suit, just so I could put that in.
So it was like X of Y, whatever it is, like X of hearts, whatever, yeah.
I added a weight.
A weight?
Yeah.
What did your weight do?
My weights were basically the values, value I's, for for Jack, Queen.
So it was your value pretty much.
Oh, so I just did it like twice?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably. By what you said, yes.
Can we do this, doing the objects
Yeah.
instead of doing it the way we did shuffle?
Yep, that's what we're gonna do. That's what we're driving towards right here. We're driving towards what does our object look like?
So I did a function object.
Function object. Okay, so you did a class.
Right.
Yes, that is the next level. That is
Is that this?
no. Yes and no. Yes and no. This is popular with object-oriented programming. You didn't have to use classes or function objects to solve this. We're gonna get to that on Wednesday.
Yeah, because I was reading up on it, and it basically told me that that's like the best way to kind of get it. Okay.
Yeah, it's the best way. It is like the best way or most accepted best way to do it.
Mhm.
Debatably best way, but we got to work under it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like driving a really awesome car, but you don't know how to drive it. So these are our properties. I don't know if I'd have a name. I don't need the name.
Deck object.
And we're gonna get rid of weight because we have the value. But yeah, so like those 4 things are what I would put inside of my object. That being said, this isn't the only way. This is just a way to do it. So I need to first off create my deck. Const create deck. So we know a deck has 52 cards, 4 suits, and 13 different ranks. So ranks, this is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then Jack, Queen, King, and Ace.
I called my ranks values.
Yep, that's fine.
It's kind of hard, there's a million ways to do it.
Yeah, and that's the challenge as well as one of the best things about programming, in my opinion,
Yeah.
is that like, hey, redid it the same way, using different ways, using different methods, using different names. So it's really kind of interesting. So I got my ranks.
Can we just to do like 10, 10, 10, 11?
So that's a great question. But like Jack, Queen, King, Ace, like they actually have value associated to them too. So instead of just something like this, I could actually say, hey, I'm going to make my ranks, instead of just an array of strings, I'm going to make them an array of objects. So instead of like 2, I'm going to say name equals 2 and value equals the number 2. So now, even though that's going to be the same for a lot of them, for the last 4 cards, we care about that value.
Is there any, like I didn't put the name, like so how you have name 2, I just had, I didn't put it within a string, I just had it like, just like how value is, would that have, and is it necessary to put the name of it in as a string instead of just a normal numeric value?
No, it's not necessary. This is just kind of, it's what this is doing.
Breaking it up.
It's separating it out. It's this idea of separation of concerns rearing its ugly head again. We're saying, hey, everything has a name. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace. But everything also has a value that's not necessarily tied to that name.
So
That's
you
it.
can have it without the name and the value, like just the 2, 2. Does that make sense? Like without
You're saying, could I get rid of that?
and that. Yep.
Nope,
Oh,
because
really?
it's no longer an object.
Okay.
So give me 2 minutes to do this real fast. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then 14. We have Jack. There's also a 10. Queen, which is also a 10. King, which is also a 10. And we have Ace, which is also an 11. Get rid of all this stuff.
Ace is an 11.
It is. No, in my game it's a 12. No, it's an 11. Yeah.
So I guess I'm hung up on the name part, because we crossed it out from earlier for HTML, but what does it have to do?
So we actually haven't created our deck yet. We're just saying, if we go back up to what this thing actually is, this thing is just our ranks. So it's just the value of a card, and it's the name of the card and the value of the card.
As in suits and values,
Mhm.
even, just the same.
Yep. So if we go over here to our HTML,
I have a question.
yes, whenever we're done. So like for this card, its rank is 3. That rank has the name of 3, but it also has a value of 3. This thing has a rank of Queen, which its name is Queen, and its value is 10. We haven't actually created our card objects yet. We're just creating the data to create the card objects. Does that help?
Yes.
Good. Savannah?
Yes, we can put it also, we can write and also the type on it. The type like heart, space, cup.
Or the suit.
The suit.
Yeah.
We're not there yet, but we're going to make a new
we
array.
We
could we do like
Yeah, the bottom.
like right here, suit?
Like, yeah.
We could, but then we have to do this 4 times, and that's a lot of work. So we're just going to do const suit equals an array of heart, spade or spades? You know what? I'm going to come over here. Hearts, plural. Hearts, spades, diamonds, clubs. So now that we have our suits and our rank, down here inside of our create deck, we are going to be creating a new deck we can use a nested for loop, which is perfectly fine. Let's think for 2 seconds of any tools that we learned today. Maybe a for each loop would be a little bit better. So let's use nested for each loops for this. So let's do suits.forEach. Suit. So for each suit and suits instead of that for loop that we did last week. Also ranks.forEach. Rank. We want to do const card equals, and this is where our planning comes into play. We have a value as rank.value. We have suit is our suit. And we have rank is rank.name. And for our image URL, it's going to be that sort of idea. Plus, but instead of that, it's going to be suit. And instead of that, it's going to be rank.name. Then, of course, after we create it, we need to add it to our deck. And then down here, just to make sure everything is working, console.log our deck. And we want to call create deck whenever the page first loads. So we're saying, hey, go to our suits array, and for each suit inside of our suits, we want to go, and for each rank inside of our ranks, we want to create a new card with our values and push it to the deck. Then at the end, we want to just print out the deck.
For the image URL, we're just is like the directory and the file type going to add that in later?
Yeah. So this is a matter of personal preference. I like to keep, sometimes, this changes with the weather. Sometimes I only like to keep what's dynamic and then have the rest static later. Or sometimes I'll just put everything that I roll there. Today I like that way of doing it. Tomorrow could be something else. But yeah. But you could, and what Andrew's getting at, you could do like images / blah plus blah plus dot svg and have the entire image URL there instead of just the part that changes. But I like to say, hey, only this middle part is changing. Everything else stays the same. So later, whenever I add that to my HTML, don't need that, I just plopped in the dynamic part. Good question. How else are we feeling?
Honestly, I feel like this is making it worse. Not gonna lie.
Really?
Yeah, because it's just, we just spent so much time making it so, like, it works, and I have it 100% different, and I can't in my brain, I can't put where the for loops, where everything goes in like, in a way that makes sense. Just like you have the consecrate deck, I have that too, but I have deck equals empty, brackets, and it's just like, I'm not sure where to pop in things for the sake of popping in there.
So I have a complete solution over here that I did it my way. Now I'm seeing something else doing the exact same thing I'm doing, but in a totally different way.
And I don't know which parts match up, yeah.
Okay.
So I guess if there's a for loop,
So everywhere where you see a for loop,
Mhm.
you can sub out for each loop.
for each.
Yes.
So if there's two and there's two there, then those are the two.
Yep.
Okay,
So interesting, you said your first line is deck equals empty array, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna need to put that here too.
okay, cool.
Because you're right, every time we create a new deck, we want to initialize it back to nothing.
Awesome.
Because I'm sure you had a bug where you called create deck again, and it's like, oh, now my deck has 104 cards.
Yes,
So I'm going to need to reinitialize it, yes.
okay.
What else is different? What else do you have that's different?
I definitely have wait in here as a let function,
Okay.
because it would change the value I would change with J, Q,
Mm-hmm.
and K.
Yep.
And then I made the weight 10, but I didn't do the top part to
Mhm.
make it easier for me.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could do, I thought you had to start with lets, to be honest, not just functions. So I had a let suits and let values and let decks.
So like up here, so
Yeah.
between const and let.
Yeah,
So the rule of the guideline, the guiding star, is everything is a const unless it's going to be changing. So const just means that value is constant. So, but I'm sure some of you are going, wait a minute, but our deck is going to be changing.
yeah,
So it's not really a constant, right? It should be a let. Well, that's not wrong in thinking, but what the const says, all the const is guaranteeing that that's always going to be an array. So like, if you had a let here, I could do, and you see I'm actually getting an error here because it's a const.
yeah,
So now you're like, oh, I have to do my let.
yeah,
Darn, yes. So yes, that's a thing.
okay,
But that's only because we're reassigning it. Instead of reassigning it, we could actually clear it. Different way of doing things. But yeah, like that's always go const until you need to go let.
okay. Thank you.
Is that helping a little bit?
Yes, I'm less confused now when I'm looking for it.
And that's going to be a thing is like, I know my code does this thing. This code does a thing too. Where
Where do we go?
yeah,
Yeah,
yes. So you're going to be reading lots of code in your career. You're going to have lots of ideas that are different from your own ideas. Just kind of get used to being like, where are we lining up?
It seems to be a little bit, the more I learn about it, it's very diverse.
It is.
Anybody can do their own thing and it'll come up to the same
Yeah.
results.
Yeah, I have 13 students here. We're going to be making a 14th one today. I guarantee you all 15 are going to be different.
yeah,
They're all going to play blackjack. They're all going to do the exact same things. There will be similarities, but each one's going to have its own unique style. The challenge for teams is how can we all write code in the same style? It's hard. It's like writing a book, right? If we all sit down and say, hey, we're going to co-author a book, that's going to be 14 chapters. We each have a chapter. We need to write in a similar style. That's hard because everyone writes in a different way. So and that's super interesting and super awesome to do.
It is.
So, creating a deck. We've written some code. Let's see if this works.
So we can begin the right that way, and so we don't need to pop up the array.
To the screen?
No, to the you put it deck equal the bracket.
Mm-hmm.
That is the way we can begin
A new deck, yeah.
new.
Yes. So every time we call create deck, we're going to reset deck to nothing. because we're creating a new deck. So where's my console? An array of 52. Here's all my objects. Spot checking, things look right. So that's awesome. Now we need to shuffle. So new thing, a next step. I'm gonna first off commit. Let's save all commit. So now we're doing something else. This should probably be its own function, just for simplicity's sake. How do we shuffle the deck? Fisher Yates, right? I'm going to go snag the algorithm for this real fast. Because I know we did this last week. And I forget it off the top of my head. Yeah, we're gonna have some mathed out randoms in there. We're gonna have a loop in there. We're gonna have a swap in there. So where's my shuffle? There's my shuffle. So we have our shuffle here. Which, if we're just looking at it, remember we're going through and we're just swapping cards randomly inside the deck. Does that look right? That looks right to me. So after we create the deck, we want to shuffle the deck.
Is there a reason you're sticking with the for loop there instead of for each?
So yes and no. So could we make this a for each? Yes. But here we actually care what the I is. And for each is more focused on the actual item. That being said, if we wanted to do this in a for each kind of way, we could do deck.forEach. And I might have lied before, saying this function takes one parameter. It actually takes two parameters. The first one is the card, and the second one is the index. So we could do that. But see, in our algorithm, we're counting down. This counts up. Even though there really wouldn't be a difference, because down is someone else's up. Usually, if I'm focusing on what index is, I'm going to use the traditional for loop versus that. That's all. That makes sense? So let's see if this works. We have our shuffled deck here, and it looks shuffled. So how are we feeling? We've created a deck, we've shuffled it. Now what?
Create players?
Yeah, I mean that's really, if we go back, or if we remember our goal we need to create a player. So what is a player?
2 cards.
2 cards, so it's a collection of cards. And every time you see a collection, it's going to be a list, which is an array. So player,
Just do create players UI.
maybe? Create player UI, is that a function for you?
Yes, it is.
What does that function do?
So I have pretty much have my players, the points that they get, and I also append child there.
So that's actually creating the UI, actually like adding the stuff to the UI?
Yeah.
Probably. We'll get there.
Oh, okay.
You're probably 15 minutes ahead of us, but I know, yeah, it's crazy. Actually,
Myself feel better.
I actually like questions like that because that means that you're getting it. So, but first, before we can get to there, we need to come back to our player object. So, let player equals an array. Is that all that a player is? Well, if I look at my UI, we have our player hand. We have our player hand, which is a list. We also have a record here that we're storing. So now once we start seeing more than one things, we're going to take this array and we're actually going to expand it to an object that has a hand as an array. We have wins as a number and losses as a number as well. We can actually make this a const.
I hate to be the nitpicker, but losses has 2 S's.
You're absolutely correct.
What is the, and I'm way behind you. But when you say constant ranks up at the top, when you're building your deck, what is in that bracket, dot, dot, dot?
Oh, right here, constant ranks. That's where we have
Is that vertical?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I just have it collapsed because once I have that data there, I don't really need to see it. I can collapse code snippets.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you figured that out. Yeah, I can collapse code snippets by that plus and minus next to things. Like, oh, I'm done with this array. There's a lot of stuff here. I'm just going to collapse it real fast.
Did you use
Hmm?
Did you use let for that because it's not there's no like item in the bracket.
So I'm using let for deck because I'm reassigning the value of deck later. Like suits, I'm not really changing. Ranks, I'm not really changing. The player object itself is not really going to change. So I'm just saying, hey, you know what? Deck will be changing. So deck is going to be a let. Everything else will be a const. So now we have our player object. We want to actually deal them cards, right? I think that's the next step. Would anyone do a different next step?
Would you have a start?
A start button?
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
no, like a function start before that, or is that after?
That's probably what I'll be making right now, actually,
Okay.
is a start game function.
Start game.
That deals cards.
Yeah.
Because that's probably what y'all have, some sort of functions like start game, begin game, do the thing. So I'm going to collapse these because I don't care about those anymore. Const start game. Now inside of here, I'm going to need to deal 2 cards to player, deal 2 cards to dealer, show player their cards, as well as show only 1 dealer card. Is there anything else that I need to do?
Update your deck.
Update the deck. That'll probably happen whenever we deal the cards.
Okay, yeah.
Be sure to update the deck.
And points maybe?
Update player. Yep. So whenever we display the cards to the UI, we also update whatever counter this is. Mhm. So how do we deal a card? So we're probably going to create a function for this, right? And we're going to be dealing a card to a player a lot. So I'm going to create a function, deal card to player. And inside of this, as we recall from last week, we're going to be using .shift to remove the first card from the deck. And then we will use .push to add to the player.
No splicing?
You could use splice to remove the first one. You could. It's just a different way of doing it. There's no right or wrong way. I prefer shift over splice because shift to me seems a lot easier to kind of grasp because it's only removing the first element and that's it. But splice is more functional. It's like using a screwdriver versus a power tool. Where the power tool is splicing, the screwdriver is shift. Shift does one thing really, really well, but with the power tool, with the hand drill, I can do a lot of other stuff. So I could use either or.
Were there different ways to write shift? Like I looked up something and I have pop. I have pop instead.
Yeah, so the difference between pop and shift.
Yeah.
Shift will remove the first element. Pop will remove the last element.
Okay, but they're the same.
Functionally, they're the same. It's just, are you taking off from the back or the front?
Okay.
Well,
So when I was doing this specific function here,
yeah.
I was having trouble shifting. I know shift is only the first one from the array, and I tried calling it twice to do like the first two for the first deal, and ran into some weird issues. So instead, I worked around by shifting and popping, so just top and bottom, which is basically the same thing because it's shuffled. It doesn't really matter where you're drawing from,
Yeah.
but I'm sure there's a better way to do that.
Yeah, probably. Like, this is kind of our first real, like, issue with abstraction from reality. Like, if we think about this in the real world, how do we deal cards, right? I give one to you, I give one to me. I give one to you, and I give one to me. The end result is that we each have two shuffled cards from the top of the deck. But like in reality, like those cards come from the top, then come from the bottom. One come from the top, one can come from the bottom. Yeah, there's some sticklers with rules, casino gambling and laws and stuff like that. But in reality, they're just giving you two random cards. So however you do that is great. There's probably a better way than shift and pop. But I'm going to make this so simple that it does one thing. So it's only going to give the player one card and that's it. So const card, const next card equals deck.shift, and then player.hand.push next card. So all we're doing is saying, hey, from the deck, give it to the player. Then for me to do this, I'm going to do this twice. Deal card to player, twice. And Will, you said you had problems doing it this way?
Yeah, I don't know. It might have been some weird syntax thing I had going on, but I could only get I might have just not had enough variables. that I was pushing into the player hand, but I could only get like one to show up. But it would still remove both
Yeah.
from the deck.
Low battery. Low battery. Okay. Okay, well, let's see if this works, and let's see if we run into that problem. So down here, after we shuffle the deck, I want to start the game.
Battery's dying.
Yeah. Somebody have a charger?
I did.
It's a. I was like, like pelted with. It's a fat one. So the first one to bring it.
He's closest.
Hey, you're the expert.
You don't have to do that.
Correct.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Coolio, charging now. And then we only have 25 minutes left. So, start the game. We're going to deal cards to player 2. After we do all that stuff, at the end of our start game, just so I know what's going on, I'm going to console.log our player. That way, after we deal it 2 hands, we should see in the console a player object with 0 wins, 0 losses, and a hand with 2 cards that are random. And those 2 cards should not be inside of our deck anymore. That's a lot of expectations, but let's kind of peel that in. We have our hand for our player here with the 2 and 8 of spades. That's awesome. So now if I bring up my deck, we see it only has 50 cards now. And I'm guessing if I look through this, we will not find the 2 cards that we have, the 8 and the 8 and 2 of spades. And it doesn't look like it is. So that's good.
So would here be the time to get your value if you were totaling, like tallying in a score?
Yep. So let's forget about the dealer for a second, and let's work on showing the user their cards as well as getting their current total.
Also, I just think the problem I had was I didn't have a start game function. I just had the deal card on that button,
Oh,
and so I think that has something to do with it.
yeah, that could be a thing.
Because you're calling make the function twice, and I can't like call the function twice inside of itself.
Yeah, that sounds like you're doing some funny things there.
Yeah. Oh. I have a separate one to do it.
Yeah.
So we need to display the cards as LI items. We also need to get the sum as well. So we need to display cards as LIs. And we also need to get the sum. So this sounds like 2 more functions. Const display player hand. So inside of here, we need to we're going to do const LIs. I'm using LIs because inside of my HTML, I have an unordered list. So I'm saying, hey, I'm going to create some LIs for each card. I'm going to use one of our new tools, map, for this because I want to take all my player hand, all my cards inside of my player hand, and convert every one of those items to a list item. So I'm taking it from an object to a list item. .map player.hand.map card. Now in here, inside of my map, I need to create a new image tag. Document.createElement img. So did anyone figure out how to set the source for an image tag? How,
MIG dot CRC
SRC.
SRC,
equal
and then the string, right?
Yeah.
So this is,
the player. You have a sound.
Mhm.
Sound.
yeah, so
URL.
but this is going to be the URL of the image, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Oh,
going to
okay,
be, so it's going to be /images/ plus card.image URL plus .svg. And then const li equals document dot create element li dot append child, the image tag. Then I want to return the li. So I'm saying for each card, create for me a new li tag that has an image tag inside of it. And that image tag is going to have the URL to whichever picture that we're pointing it to.
Could you say that one more time, please?
Yeah, so I'm taking my player hand, I'm mapping over it, I'm saying, hey, for every item inside of my player hand, create for me a new li that contains an image tag that points to that whatever URL that is. And plop that into a new array called li's.
So that's why you have to do underscore all underscore is because that image URL contains.
Yep. So now that I have the li's in a new array, I can just do li's dot for each down the line. And I can say, hey, for each one of my new li's, I want to append it to my parent. So document dot query selector. I think I called it player hand. Yep, player hand dot append child li. So I'm just saying, hey, for each one of my new things that I've created with my map, put them on the DOM, and that's it.
Does the player hand your parent?
Now, player hand is my unordered list. I'll bring it up side by side. So right here is my player hand.
Yeah, you.
Yes, no? So I'm saying, hey, go find my player hand and add these li's. So let's see if this works. So I come over here. I refresh the page. 3 and the queen are hard-coded. But hey, I have the 8 of spades as well as the 9 of clubs.
So I can do that for each, like you don't have, oh, okay.
So how are we feeling with that?
Since it's a map, you've eliminated the if else.
Yes.
So you don't have to do it for that dealer.
Right. Because I'm only doing it for the player hand and that's it. I'm only zoning in on that.
Oh, well,
Whenever-
that's what I was asking, so,
Okay.
but,
Whenever we get to the dealer, we'll probably have an own function for the dealer.
wait. You can't do it for both.
We will. Yes. But in order for us to get to that proper abstraction of what that looks like, instead of trying to do it like abstract the first time, or generic enough to handle both the first time, let's just do it normally for one, and then we'll build up to that.
Oh, I should do it always.
Yeah. Because, yes, and I'm sure your little programmer brains are going off like, wait a minute, I'm going to be displaying a dealer hand here in about 20 minutes. I should just make this able to display both at first. But try to take that brain, take that little voice in your head, don't listen to it, and go, I'm going to get the player hand showing. Now I'm going to get the dealer hand showing. Now that I've done both, oh, here's my actual abstraction. Here's my proper abstraction. Pre-abstraction is the devil, and pre-optimization is even worse. So stuff like that, just shy away from. So we have a displaying, which is great, but we have a slight bug. It's always appending onto that UL. You notice how we have all this stuff here? So we need to get rid of this stuff before we want to remove all the cards in the existing UL. So I know a few of you discovered this over the weekend and worked with this. How do we empty out content from a HTML element? So if I wanted to remove everything that's inside the player hand before I re-add stuff to it, how would I do it?
To like clear it, I just set its array length to 0 for the player hand. Is that what you're
So
saying?
yeah, so like if we had the UL, so we wanted to remove all the LIs,
Oh,
how would I do that?
I did a while loop.
Do a while loop?
Yeah, I did a while loop and then document search query. If you're trying to remove the LIs, I did search query LIs. So while there's an LI in the DOM, and then inside the while loop, I did document query selector LI dot remove parentheses, and that got rid of them for me.
Okay.
I don't know if it's right or not, but I just removed the element and then added it back.
Okay.
I delete my section, and create my section again.
You just have remove images.
Yeah. So like there is a dot remove function. You could clear the section and like just remove out the entire UL and re-add it again. There are more than one. There's a lot of different ways to do this properly. The easiest way to do it is actually going, hey, go to my document, find that thing. Instead, it's inner HTML, not inner HTML. Nope. Text content to nothing. So this is, before you go, wow, this is the easiest. This isn't the most optimized way to do it. Yeah, if you go on Stack Overflow and see the most optimized way, it's kind of crazy. But like, this is good enough. This is good enough for today. The reason why I'm not going to show you the crazy optimized way is that it's crazy.
Can I get a
And will be
comparison?
React. What?
Can we get a comparisons
For what, the crazy way?
for that and crazy? I know you say you don't want to do that, but just so I can kind of have a better
Yeah.
understanding.
Cool. So it's
Is-
working, and I'll do that in a second. Yeah.
Is crazy document.get element by ID?
No, it's.
You can comment that out.
So it is. Dot var. I know, right? It's terrible. Working in multiple languages is terrible. It is dot parent equals this. So we go, oh, find it, and then while, I'm going to get rid of this, so it's not as crazy. While parent dot first child, parent dot first child dot remove.
So 3 lines instead of 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was my problem.
We have this crazy way, and then we have this simple unoptimized way, which is okay for today, but this is how you should do it if you're going to use vanilla JavaScript. This is just saying, hey, go to my document, grab the parent, and while that parent has kids, remove the kid. Jason, do you have any comments?
No, that's the right way. I really wish there was like a built-in thing like
Yeah.
remove children. Like that should be a method that's built in. It's not,
Yeah.
Okay.
but that's the like standard way to do that.
Yeah.
So
Like, I would say it's okay to get away with this today, because in a week we're going to be in React and none of this matters. But this is the crazy optimizing.
When he says none of this matters, it's kind of like you drive a car every day. Like, do you care how an internal combustion engine works? Like, maybe, maybe not. But it's kind of important to understand at least a little bit about how your car works so that you can be a better driver.
Yeah.
Right? And a better car owner.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very similar to that. So this is very much, this is at the lowest level, how you make a web page dynamic. This is not a low-level programming language in terms of like overall, but as far as like interacting with the browser and making a web page interactive, this is as low as that. Actually, it does technically get lower.
It does.
Simply, but ignoring that, these APIs are how the meat and potatoes of how a web page gets made dynamic. That said, there are higher-level tools to do this more efficiently and effectively and more productively. But it's really important that you understand like what those tools are doing under the hood, so that you can make better decisions on how to use those high-level tools. And next week we start using one of the most popular high-level tools, which is React. So, yeah, that was a property, not a.
Yep.
There was a hand.
Yes.
Yes, there it is.
I know this is kind of chasing tangents, but when is it better to use like, if we were going for like the crazy remove way, which is kind of, when is it better to do that versus the remove child one? Because that was one that involved like different arguments going in the parentheses and stuff, and I just couldn't figure that one out.
Are we talking about?
Yeah. So like instead of doing something like this, we would do like
107?
so like parent dot remove child.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then here, this remove child, this takes a query selector.
Okay.
So I have to go, or this takes some sort of element.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have to do like.
If you know what the thing is you want to remove,
Mhm.
you would use that one because you're just wanting to like slice one thing out of the list.
Okay.
Right? If you don't know what that thing is, then you want to do the second one, which is like, I just want to remove all of them. I don't care which one it is. Just if I have a thing, remove it, and keep doing that until I no longer have a thing. That's what the 104 through 106 say.
Okay.
This one,
Yeah, it works. It it's
Pants?
yeah,
it doesn't really remove stuff.
yeah,
It just kind of thinks you removed it.
yeah.
So visually it will work, and it will work to like actually not show stuff to the user, but the DOM would still have some elements. There'd be a lot of trash left over, and it would produce an unclean DOM at the end, so you really shouldn't use it.
Yeah.
But it's the easiest to kind of wrap your head around and going, oh, I'm just going text content, nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus a while loop that says, while there's stuff,
Will
delete.
you show us how can I have a problem with remove things to the DOM. Yeah, but I didn't use LI. I used, for example, image, just image. In the same way, I
Yep.
use, and also I could use class. I has to use ID.
This can be changed to any other selector that you have, so image, selector, whatever parent that is. You just target whatever parent it is and say, hey, while this parent has children, remove. It doesn't matter whether it's ULs, sections, divs, headers, H1s, or whatever. This is generic enough that it will work across anything.
In relation to the way that other people have done it with removing the UL alone,
Yeah.
where does that fall in between the two ways that you did it?
So if we wanted to remove the entire UL,
And then add it back.
we could do it either way.
Okay.
We're just changing what we're targeting. That's all. This method of removing isn't specific for lists. It's for any HTML
No, I
element.
mean like an efficiency from going from either a while loop or using the text content clearing method. Removing the entire UL efficiency wise, is that more on the scale of the while loop or different than the while loop that you just
It's
said?
only like how many times that while loop is running. So like if, let's over to our index. So if we would target this UL, that while loop is running twice, right? We're removing this one, then we're removing this one. So that while loop is running twice. But if we would target the parent of this UL to say, hey, remove the UL, now we're actually removing everything inside of here. So not only are we running it more, but we actually need to specify what we're targeting. I wouldn't worry about that too much. So yes.
Quickly, so when I did do the parent-child removal thing, it kept coming up nodes, like parent nodes.
Yeah.
Nodes, is that okay?
Yeah.
It's a semantic thing.
A node is the more JavaScript term for an HTML element.
That's what I figured. Okay,
Yes.
but it's fine to keep like that.
So like HTML is DOM, right? HTML tag is actually a node. Just different terminology.
Probably the reason why mine wasn't working, but so instead of declaring the parent variable, if you put the document query selector all in line within the while loop, what would I have been doing?
So that's
Clearly
just
it wasn't doing something right.
so the only difference between that and this, just to have everyone on the same page, what Andrew did was that instead. Instead of using parent.firstChild is going back and getting it every time. The only difference is that every time this while loop runs, you're going back to the DOM to find it. Versus here, we're just saying, oh, I got everything here, I'm just going to delete it. So you're just making a lot of round trips. So I don't think that would have affected it, but JavaScript?
Something didn't work.
Yeah. How are we feeling? Let's display the player total and then break for lunch. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Think we can do that in 4 minutes?
Yes.
So we have our display player hand. And then let's make a new one, const display player total. So we need to sum up all the cards in a player's hand. So I bet you all used a for loop, right?
Yes.
So we can do it with a for loop. We can do it with a for each loop to see that. We could also, since we're taking a lot of things and reducing it down to one value, we could use a reduce. So how do y'all want to see it? The hardest way reduce? Reduce? All right.
Both,
I
one
did
coming
some.
out.
Yeah, we'll do the reduce and then we'll do the for each. Does that sound good? Or do you want to do the for each and then the reduce? Let's do the reduce. So in order for me to reduce it, const player score equals player.hand.reduce. Now if we recall, reduce takes two parameters, right? A starting value and an anonymous function. We have total and we have card instead of our anonymous function. And then we want to say, hey, total plus equals card.value. Because remember, our card is an object that has a value. We care about the value. This would be the actual number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 10, 10, 11. That would be that actual value. We want to add that together in a total and then return that total. Return total. So now that player score should be whatever the sum is inside of my hand. Then lastly, I want to add that to the DOM or update the HTML, which is right here inside of our player score. So document dot query selector player score dot text content equals player score. Calculating it and then putting it onto the DOM.
That's not algorithm.
What?
That's like an algorithm for telling the card what to do.
Yep. Our algorithm here is saying go to each card, add up the sum up the totals, and then display it to the user. So I'm going to call this right here. And hopefully this will work. We have 20, which is 9 plus 11. If I refresh the page a couple times, 7 plus 8 is 15. Looks to be working. Yeah. See that? See how it's like flashing like that? I don't like that, so I'm going to go in here and remove my content. My dummy data. Dummy data, see ya. It's now over here. I no longer have that flash. So here was our reduce. And then to do it with the for each real fast.
Don't erase. Don't delete. Comment.
Yeah, yeah. Using the for each. So using a for each, I'm going to comment this out. Const here it's let player score equals 0. We need some bucket to put it in. And then for each player dot hand dot for each card player score plus equals card dot value. So both of these do the same thing. It's just coding style, which one you like better, which one you think is more readable. Some people like the for each, some people like the reduce idea. It's up to you.
Can we just use for loop?
You can just, yep, if you want to use a for loop, you can do that too. Do you want to see it real fast?
So that pushes it.
So using just a standard for loop for I in player dot hand const card player score plus equal card dot value.
If you don't put let player score equals 0, would it start at 52 or something?
So this is saying, hey, we're adding up something. This is just giving us a starting point.
Okay.
And the reason why it's a let is that we're changing the value. So 3 different ways to do the exact same thing. Each way is correct. Neither way is more wrong or more correct than the other. And it all comes down to readability and coding style and what type of team you're on.
Can we just do player score plus equal player dot hand I?
Instead of doing const card equals, yeah, we could combine that into one line by doing something like that. Yeah.
Without adding? Can we just
It works, and you can do it that way. Yeah. Yes. So I'm going to say showing player score and hand as a get commit message. And I will push this. So for your homework tonight, it's a good day to kind of, we had a really big assignment over the weekend. We tell you that this course has natural breakpoints, natural like catch your breath. This is your first catch your breath kind of day. I know. So for tonight, you're going to have a blog for me to write. You're going to write for me a blog article. You're going to do a small code wars challenge. And then also, adventure mode is continue to work on blackjack. So I know everyone has stuff that they want to do to blackjack. Maybe something feels better after today, but go and continue to work on that.
Are you gonna post this?
Hello.
Oh, fantastic.
So I'll send out. So for the blog article, I just want to talk about this for a second. Have you talked about blogs yet?
No.
It's been mentioned that it is the thing we are doing.
Yes. So what I'm looking for in a blog, I don't expect a book. I expect something bigger than a tweet, but shorter than a novel. I know. It's a long range there. It's long enough to get your point across. I'm not going to go, oh, this is only 495 words. I expected 500 words. Go write me a filler. No, I'm not going to do that.
So any topic?
I'm going to prompt you with something. I forget what the prompt is today. I think it's explain a topic we've already talked about. It's a good chance to get you to work on talking about tech and actually trying to get that lingo down. Because you will have to write emails explaining what's going on. You will have to write Slack messages about what exactly is going on. So use these as practice to talking the talk. Like how can I sound like a developer? How can I communicate my technical thoughts? It's also good, blogging is also good to getting your name out there. We're going to be using medium.com for our blogs. It's a very good way to start building up an online presence to kind of add that to a resume or LinkedIn or something like that. So, yeah, thoughts? Yeah. There is, I'll also plug this really fast. There's an app out there called Grammarly that I love. But what it does, it actually, it checks your verbiage and stuff. It checks your grammar as well as your spelling. So that's really handy for someone like me who hates writing. So I'd also recommend using that. But yeah, blog article, Code Kata, and Blackjack. I'll see y'all with me at 3, and we'll continue building Blackjack together. Does that sound good? All right.
Perfect.
Time to lunch.